Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. And welcome back to another episode of Connect with the Quran. And I'm Najman Sari, and I'm hoping to walk you through this fourth series, groups of surahs, which started with Surah Furqan. And now we're going to look at the next surah, which is Surah Shuara, and it means the poets. And just before we start, inshallah, let me just have you listen to a recording of the first few ayahs.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Qasim Mim. Tilka ayatul kitabil mubin. لعلك باخع نفسك ألا يكونوا مؤمنين إن نشأ ننزل عليهم من السماء آية فظلت أعناقهم لها خاضعين وما يأتيهم من ذكر من الرحمن محدث إلا كانوا عنه معرضين فقد كذبوا فسيأتيهم أنباء ما كانوا به يستهزئون أولم يروا إلى الأرض كم أنبتنا فيها من كل زوج كريم إن في ذلك لآية وما كان أكثرهم مؤمنين وإن ربك لهو العزيز الرحيم.
صدق الله العظيم. So those were the first 9 ayahs of the Quran of Surah Shuara, and it starts with Tasin Mim. The next 2 surahs will also have Tasin or Tasin Mim, and eventually we will be talking about the stories of the previous Anbiya. But just to give you a bit of a recap just at the moment, is that it's a counterpart of Surah Furqan and that preceded it, and there's similarity in it. Both is talking about, it affirms the prophethood of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the divinity of the Quran. And the style is, however, a little bit different in that here, in the previous one, we had the anecdotes of the prophets in rather concise manner, and here we'll get them in a bit more detailed. The Quraysh used to accuse Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam being a soothsayer, a sorcerer, and these are especially dispelled in this surah. And a repetitive set of ayahs, which I love, it comes in, whenever ayahs are repeated in the Quran, and now we'll get in Ar-Rahman, we will get it, even in Surah Qamar, if I'm not mistaken, and a few others, when the same notion is repeated, not the same notion, the same ayah exactly, is that there is a significance to it. It's to backtrack. It's to come back. This is where we're starting. This is where we're doing. And the ayah here, which in this passage we also heard in ayah 8, it's inna fi dhalika la ayah wa ma kana aktharuhum mu'minin. And this is in fact an ayah, all that's been said. This is an ayah, but the fact is that most of them do not believe. And this refrain will come repeatedly, and if you like, I'm just going to give it to you, how frequently it comes. This ayah comes first in ayah 8, then it comes in 15, then it comes in 67, then it comes, it's one of the long ayahs. It's a Makki surah, but the ayahs are 228, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So in fact, in terms of ayahs, this surah is, in numbers of ayah, if I'm not mistaken, it's the second longest. It's 227, and Surah Baqarah is 286. There might be something else in between, but even though these are Makki surah, so it's a short bullet point kind of ayahs, but this refrain of Inna fi dhalika la ayah wa ma kana aktharuhum mu'minin, this in its format, it comes in so many ways, and it comes in after 67, 103, 121, and 139, 158, 174, 190. So it comes multiple times. So it's a refrain that is being picked up in this surah. So anyway, back to here, and then and 9 says that, and inna rabbaka lahuwal azizur rahim. This concept of aziz and rahim comes frequently in the Quran. Aziz to show the might, and then also the beauty is that if we get mighty, we lose the plot. We are no longer so forgiving, so merciful, and so on. And by contrasting Jalal, Asmal Husna, and a Jamal together, it shows Allah is this, but at the same time He's this. Like often it's related with Alim, that when you have a lot of hikmah, but you usually lose the plot if you think you're so knowledgeable. So that's the kind of background that this one is bringing up to the fore. Then to continue on this of what it is, these are the signs, but most of you are not going to believe, and He is also mighty. It also occurs frequently after every paragraph about He's mighty and merciful. And in the surah, this repetition shows that those who were demanding a sign of punishment from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a proof of his veracity, especially addressed. Their attention is directed to, the facts of history, that they should take a lesson from the fates of the nations before them who denied, and not blindly follow those nations as they were inflicted with the punishment of Allah. And so you will see that there's a connection of the connection between the passages. So it's 1 to 9 is an introductory bit, and then she's assured Rasulullah that if they don't accept the sign, if they're not demanding, if Allah wanted, all He could have done is send something from heaven, and it would have lowered their necks in humility. This is referring to ayah 4. However, it doesn't do that. We don't need any external proof. It's a standalone. I love that phrase. We talk about computers and laptops. That's when we first heard the standalone. Quran is standalone. It doesn't need any external proof for its veracity. It's in itself. And those who deny it, they will face each other one day, and the threat and the warning, and there are no dearth of signs if only they would take heed. In the universe, in themselves. And there's a whole lecture, they do it in biology, about your internal organs and all of that. Why doesn't that make you think of signs? Who can do it? So Allah can see anybody anytime, and the fact that He doesn't mean that He's silent, He's gone to sleep, or He's off duty today. So, and He's also very merciful. So Allah does give you respite despite your rebellion. And the point is that maybe one day you'll wake up. Now we've had it. How many people after the 9/11 incident, people were reading the Quran, and many did become. And so whenever there's a major calamity like what is happening in Gaza and all that, many people do come. So that is a mercy in Allah giving you leeway to make you jack up, and maybe one of the signs will make you wake up. So from 10 to 68, we've got the anecdotes of Musa alayhi salam, his story of how he came, and from the time that he was drowned. It's given briefly in those. And the beautiful thing is that Musa alayhi's story comes up frequently with different things being highlighted. Sometimes what happened to the mother, how she had trouble putting him out in the river Nile, how his sister followed him from a distance and saw him, and sometimes another passage. So those are all the beautiful things that happen. So from 10 to 68, as I said, it went on through that. Then we continued. From 69 to 104, it's Ibrahim's alayhi salam story of inviting his father and his nation to monotheism, and what happened to them in their they were indifferent to the hereafter. So again, that inna fi dhalika la ayah, that this is what we have been sending to you. This is what comes up again. And so with Abraham alayhi salam's story as well. And then up to 104. And then we have it, the next story that we have is Nuh alayhi salam, so from 105, and how they denied it. And again, the repetition of those ayahs happen at the end of that. So then we have, after that, we have it, so the repetition of both, inna fi dhalika la aya wa ma kana aktharuhum mu'minin. So we can tell them till you can tell people till you're blue in the face, but if they don't want to listen, they're not going to listen. And inna rabbaka lahuwal azizur rahim. This refrain is repeated again and again. The next story from 123 is a story of Hud alayhi salam and his people of Ad. And then from 141, it's of Saleh alayhi salam with the people of Thamud. And 160 is the invitation of Lut alayhi salam. So these are just the breakdowns of it. And then after that, Shuaib alayhi salam. And then towards the tail end, in the concluding verse ayahs, what is explained is what was in the beginning, that the details are following that. What you need to keep in mind, that the Quran is divine. Allah has revealed it to Rasulullah, so don't for a minute doubt him. And if you do, that's where you're going to go. But we'll continue just a bit more on that detail of what the key factors come up in this surah as well, in this passage, just after we take a short break. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and hang in there. We'll be back shortly. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. We are going through Surah Shuara, just an overview briefly and giving you at what surahs which story is being covered. So I'm just recapping now from 176 to 1921. We have the story of the people of Madian and how they treated Shuaib alayhi salam and how they met their end. And so, and just notice when you're reading it how those two ayahs keep coming up about these are the signs, and there are many who don't take heed. So again, a wake-up call for us that maybe I take heed 50% of the time, 70%, but there's always sometimes when I lose the plot and then I go bananas. And then these are the kind of ayahs which you take heed of. At every level of my life, do I need to stay focused? Because, maybe when I'm watching a football match now, whether it's Maghrib or not Maghrib, I've totally forgotten it because I'm so engrossed in what I'm doing. So when you see these repetitions, that's just me giving it as a take-home message, as a personal level of what would I like to take whenever I read these ayahs again. Verily, in this is signs, but most of them don't believe, and that Allah, He is Azizur Rahim. Again, time and again, to know that. So, and it works at every level, whether you are in depressed mode and you say, no, He is Aziz and Hakim, He will sort it out for me. So these are what comes up. So what the main aspects that we would be nice to keep in mind, or we need to take home as a message, is that the Quran is divine. So for yourself, when you're down and out, you're feeling, whether it's depression because of the situation, current affairs, internationally, in your own country, down in your own domestic, whatever suburb you're living in, no water, no electricity, whatever it is, what is it that you can do that ultimately Allah is in charge, and be proactive? Like I said, that one of the ways, if we are studying the Quran, what is the first thing that becomes incumbent on us of being caring for the next person of creation? The best way we can serve Allah is by serving His creation. So that is the kind of thing to be looking at. And then also to look at primarily to the Arabs, how Allah favored them, that He revealed the Quran in Arabic. So they should have been the first ones to be coming to the party. Here we are, non-Arab mother tongue, and we love Arabic and we want to do all we can to have it imbibed in us. And then we can look, about these Quraysh? They heard the message. And what happened to them? Why were they not able to be moved? So that also is by Allah's decree who He gives their hidayah. So it was their misfortune, their deprivation, that they did not value it as it should be. And then the arguments to be found for the Quran have been in the previous scriptures as well. It has been in the previous scriptures. They were meant the people of the scholars from the people of the book also knew it. How is it that Medina, the people, the Aus and Khazraj tribes, the Arabs tribes, were able to recognize Rasulullah? Because of all the things that the Jews had been telling them, that we've got a prophet coming, we've got a prophet coming. And so they said, yes, this is it. And now look at the irony of the situation, that the Jews who telling them about the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the time is ripe, he's going to be appearing, is that when he did, they, out of shock and grief that he didn't come to in their Bani Israel and he came in the Bani Ismail, the arrogance just kicks in. And you know what I found very interesting to notice, even for us, we say, whether I'm a facilitator or I am look at even leaders of who say these beautiful things, who say good things, and yet when the push comes to shove, or when it comes down at the last minute, notice how they are turncoats. Whatever they said, and it can apply to me equally, to anybody sitting on a podium thinking that we're saying something, just watch what happens when the crisis kicks in. And we can be even talking about, use the example at an assembly or at a school and the principal and telling good values and everything. But if there is a crisis, suddenly there's a fire alarm or something, who is the first one to run out maybe? And if you see these sort of things in your workplace, wherever you are, notice what happens. It's also like, the last person to leave a sinking ship should be the captain. And if he's the first one to abdicate, then you see that these scholars of the book, are then not holding true to what they have been preaching. They're the first ones who ego kicks in, and they are not able to recognize. They do recognize him, but they couldn't for an instant imagine we, the Bani Israel, are the torchbearers of the faith. How can it come to somebody else? And then the thing that take it from me personally and everybody else, how is it that we able to look inward? And this is what, again, the Quran invites us to do, is are you able to look inwards at yourself of what's going on? Then this book warns us about the disbelievers, that, we've given you everything you need to know. You've been fully informed, and now you have to be called to account. And if you're still adamant on this, denying it deeply, then just be aware of the consequences. And then the foolishness, this argument, the objection that they raised, that it was a jinn or it was somebody else who inspired this book to Rasulullah, who told them. He said, no, the traits of people who receive inspirations is that is also depictive of what kind of people they are. That's not what the Quran is. So it's not a work of Quran is not the work of a Shuara. So here it's the work of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here it is putting the Shuara down as saying that soothsayers and everything. So the certain parameters that distinguish the Quran from poetry is very well delineated, and it needs the attention to say that, can't you see what is being given to you? And so those who lose this ability to not be able to distinguish this, the attention, to the theme of those who are not able to understand, that they become slaves to their desires, and they are not then, you're just involved in, and they only wake up when they see their fate. And this is the way, when you keep saying, oh, only when I see it will I believe it, well, then it's going to be too late, my dear. Then it's going to be a bit too late. And, our concept of being in submission, being a slave, if we are a slave to Allah, we are not a slave to anybody else. But if I'm a slave to my desires, then I've lost the plot totally. So here what they said, so again, back to linking it, I want to just go to the tail two ends of Surah 226, which says, وَأَنَّهُمْ يَقُولُونَ مَا لَا يَفْعَلُونَ. It comes frequently, this phrase also, that they don't, and they say what they don't practice. In another beautiful ayah, it comes that they have tears pouring down their eyes, and whenever they do a mistake, then they come back on track because they know, they are well aware of what they are doing. So this self-awareness that we need to have, and this is what the Quran encourages us to, is to be self-reflective, of not pointing fingers elsewhere, but looking inward of where are we. And then there comes also a time, look, I've done what I can, I've done as decently as I am, and now even if now the employer or somebody else is still not being appropriate to what is needed, well, then I can back off, and then they bear the consequences. You can help somebody so much, you can help somebody, objections, raise it, but after a point you need to really back off. And they said, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, this is on the last ayah, أَفَآمَنُوا وَعَمَلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَذَكَرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. And so those who believe and work righteously and remember Allah much, because it's in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find clarity, for solace, but also do your own ability to act improve. And what do? And they defend themselves only when they've been unjustly attacked. So wait for it. When you are, as much as you can, like we talked about in the last surah, navigate away from it. You don't have to have head-on confrontation with every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And then what they do, because the unjust will come to know, those who have wronged, that what return will they be returning to. So it's also this beautiful idea of how Allah has a play on words about munqalibin yanqalibun, of ayyu munqalibin yanqalibun, of what is it that they are going to be returning to. Again, where do you think you're going? Your consequences you are going to pay. If you're going to wait till you see it, well, just wait for it. We're waiting too. It comes elsewhere frequently. You wait and we wait. So this whole idea of how it's clarifying at this end of what the Quran is so clear. And if you can't see its beauty, then that plus the plot. And I'll just end with how frequently, without going into depth, people come to the Quran and they say, wow, it's just talking to me, it's just talking to me, it's just talking to me. So of the ones who become Muslim and so on more recently. So Allah give us the hidayah and the ability to see clearly and know that we are grateful for being Muslims, and then if we are coming to Islam, the gratitude that Allah gives us the guidance. So with that, I would like to end off on this surah, and inshallah pray that we are able to imbibe the beauty of the Quran and really truly connect with it, to connect with our Creator and to connect with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. With that, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.